So, welcome to this session of Piano Tech Radio Hour. As always, just to remind you that this is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. We just wrapped up a large part of our September convention. It's very exciting, and you can go to pianotechniciansmasterclass.com to learn more about that and get a sense of all of the different programs and content that we're offering. Lots of cool stuff, and we're working on doing a little bit of clarification too for folks on just what all the offerings are. We realize we've got quite a bit of content at this point, and we needed to overhaul the website a little bit and make sure it's all even clear what's available. So excited to be updating that info and sending that along. We'll update you guys when that info is clarified and more concise. So what I thought we might talk about today, I'll give you a preview. I forget which week we have it lined up for, but in a few weeks, we're going to have Jonathan Cleghorn. And the reason that Jonathan Cleghorn is interesting is because this came up in a previous session, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was when we were talking about, we got a little tangent talking about my adventures in Peru and Peruvian pianos and things like that. And I had come across this fellow who had refurbished, I believe it was a Chickering piano at his uncle's mission. They have a mission in Urubamba, Peru. And it was a Chickering with this very interesting action that you don't see a lot of called the Brown action. And so I contacted Jonathan a couple days ago, and he's open to joining us sometime soon. And he can come in and maybe dig up some photos and some content on his restoration project on the piano, that piano. So that should be interesting, and it'll be good to reconnect with him. I have not talked with Jonathan in a few years, actually. So today, I thought it would be fun to just talk about evaluations and sort of the topic of appraisals. We had a professional appraiser, Leopold Holder, as part of our September convention, and as part of that, it was reinforced. I was kind of already aware of this. When it comes down to making quote unquote appraisals of pianos, in a sense, as far as I understood from him, like even using the word appraisal is a little bit, you're putting yourself at a little bit of risk by saying you're making an appraisal of an instrument if you don't have kind of the training and exposure to the ins and outs of what it really means to do appraisals. I'll give a little bit of brief explanation of my understanding from memory of that. And it's just kind of, especially when it comes out for insurance purposes, for any legal purposes, for donation purposes, any place where someone wants that value, maybe not just for their own understanding, but they want it as sort of an independent arbiter, third-party opinion that they may submit as sort of fact, really. Leo even explained it as like fact at a point when he makes an appraisal, it sort of becomes a fact. And so at that point, you're going to want to either have that training as a professional appraiser, or you're going to want to be collaborating with a professional appraiser, at least upon his advisement. But we all know that, comes upon times where people just want our opinion. They want to be, hey, what do you think this piano's worth? What should I do with it? What would it cost to, get it back into shape? And what I've found is kind of an interesting approach is, and I think it's not to say that I've been good at implementing it as regularly as I'd like with myself and my team, but I think you can do an evaluation of almost every piano you visit when you're done with it. You can go over the piano, you can fill out a checklist of various items and features of the piano and their condition, and just submit it to the client as, hey, here's where you're at with your piano. Here's some things that you might be able to do to improve it. You don't necessarily have to give a number value at that point of the piano, but a lot of people are sort of ignorant as to what they could do to improve their piano, what might quote unquote be wrong with it or malfunctioning or things like that, or just ways to kind of tweak it and make it even better than it already is. So I thought I'd just share with you a couple of formats that I've used, and we can open it up to discussion. I think some of you probably even have even more experience than I do with this, so that's fine. You're welcome to throw in your opinions. But let me share a little bit. First, I'm going to open up some photos. We can take a look at a piano that I did an evaluation of, and we'll just take a look at the details and how I went about it. And like I said, I can show you the documentation that I submitted to the client, as well as the photos, and we can talk through it. Kind of be an interesting discussion. So let's see here. First of all, let me go ahead and I'll share with you guys this whole folder of photos. Copy the link. It's been a while since I did this evaluation, so I think it'll be fine to share this. The piano's probably been transferred ownership or something at this point. So here's a kind of a cool piano. It was an Estonia grand piano. I'll share the link with you guys if you want to check out the photos on your own, but I'll also share my screen. And let me I think I may even have some videos, so I'll share video and sound here. Okay, cool. So yeah, so here's a piano. Let's all just take a look at it. I haven't reviewed these photos even. I got to the folder and looked at a few of them. We could run through them and see. Photos I think are kind of just like a really easy way to add professionalism to anything that I'm doing. So I like to take a bunch of photos. It's pretty inexpensive. I have noticed like some people are better at taking photos than others. So if you feel like your photo taking skills could be improved, I bet you could just kind of consult with a friend who's good at it, and they might be able to give you some tips in terms of, just how to get good lighting. There's some very simple things you can do with your phone camera, but that most people aren't aware of, like ways that you can adjust the sort of contrast and brightness and the focus even, just using a phone camera. So if you're not aware of those little tweaks, those are good things you can do to improve and then make a better impression on the client. Yeah, so here's this piano, an Estonia grand piano. Let's just look through the photos a little bit, and then I'll show you the evaluation that I did and even share with you some of that formatting. So it's a pretty nice looking piano on the outside. And there's different facets that I want to address. And actually, maybe that's a good place to get to this Estonia. Let me just stop share real quick and I'll find the actual evaluation. Estonia. Here it is. Perfect. Okay, I'm actually going to screen share this evaluation first, and let me download it quickly. And at the top, I won't share the top information because that shares like the customer's name and so forth, but just to say at the top of an evaluation, I kind of list the customer's name, serial number, date of manufacture, even their address and maybe phone number, just to make it clear who's interacting. But actually, let's take a look at this sort of form that I use first, and that'll explain why I take the pictures that I take. All right. Okay. So I kind of break it down into categories. So first, I definitely want to put like the cabinet type at the top there, and I just get as explicit as I can. And then I have ratings. I give myself a rating scale, and just for the sake of putting some sort of metrics on it, I say, if I gave it a 1, your piano's trash, right? It's probably something you should probably get rid of, or find some other use for. 5 might be usable, so you're sort of an intermediate level, and I'll reserve ratings of 10 for something that's perfect or near new. And then I break things into categories. So category 1 would be belly, and I would incorporate various subcategories in that, including soundboard, bridges, pin block, bass strings, treble strings, and plate. And then action, and I would incorporate keys, action parts, hammers, dampers, pedal, lyre, and then a section for tone, a section about the case, a section about the bench, and then we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. You know, again, this at this point, I think I called it an appraisal, but I think at this point in time, I would have just called it an evaluation or maybe an estimate or something that's a little bit less official. But I think it's still fair to give people an opinion, right? You could call it an opinion, something like that. Um, so once I have this format, that helps me take the photos that I take. So I'll make sure I'll take some photos of the soundboard, take some photos of the bridges, take some photos of the pin block, bass strings, treble strings, plate. Make sure I take pictures of the keys. Maybe I get a chance to open up the piano and take pictures of the action parts, hammers, dampers, pedal lyre, stuff like that. Of course, the tone, I'm not going to take any pictures there. The case, I can take a bunch of pictures, and the bench, I'm going to have the capability to take a bunch of pictures. So let's go back and I'll share the pictures so then you get the rationale of why I took the pictures I took. Just give me 1 second here. Make sure that's open. All right, cool. All right, so one thing that I think of when I'm taking these photos is, yeah, maybe somebody is selling this piano, and I'm going to hand over these photos to them, so they actually might like to use some of them, you know, for sales purposes. So great, I'll hand them off, make sure they're good pictures, make sure they're thorough, and then not only do they have the evaluation, but they got something they could include to share with potential buyers, you know, post online, stuff like that. So you can see I've got some nice views of the piano. Try to take some from the left, some from the right, some from the front. As you know, I mentioned, we're going to talk about the pins. Take a picture of the pins. Talk about bass strings and treble strings. Take pictures of those items. Here, you know, I see some rust on the strings, right? So that might be something I'm going to make comments about. So I'll take a detail on that. And then, you know, I'm going to talk about the soundboard. Here's some pictures of the soundboard. I'm getting enough focus that I can see there's dust on there because I'm going to bring that up in the evaluation. This is not just about you know, the physical functionality of the piano, but you know, some things you could do to improve it. So if I have a picture like this, they can really get a sense that there's some dust on that soundboard. Then me making a recommendation to dust it off is a lot easier to make with these photos as evidence. Got some treble strings, bass strings. Now we're getting to the bridges. We're looking at the bridge pins. If there were any cracks here, I could take a close-up photo of that. And then with this particular piano, actually, I believe I took these close-ups because there were some keys that were sort of sticking. If you can see that this black key was a little bit low. I forget what the cause of that. Maybe like a key lead that had been a little bit corroded and was sticking on the next key or something like that. But just want to get a close-up view of that. That's an issue with the functionality. Yeah, and you can see even here, I would depress the key and it would stay down. So that's good information. Looks like that happened to one of the white keys as well. Taking a picture of dampers and bass strings. These might be, I don't know if those were the 2 keys that had the issue. And actually, I even grabbed a video, I think, of some malfunction. Could take a quick look at that. Forget whether that was the sticking of the key or if that was, you know, getting a sense of how well in tuned it was. Here's another. This is the one with the sticking key for sure. Easy enough, just so it's not a still, so it's really clear that that's something that just stays down. Then I took some pictures of the underbelly of the piano. You know, you might see some issues there. This is all looking pretty clean and neat and everything's okay. There's the pedal lyre. As I said, we can make some comments about that and, you know, get some thorough pictures of the entire case because we might make comments about scratches or scuffs or nicks or things like that. So we got pictures of the legs, sides of the piano, kind of any details where you might have issues, take close-ups of those things, get the piano open and closed. It looks like there's a little bit of a like a little nick or a scratch here on the piano. Get a close-up of that. Here's another blemish on the piano, some sort of thing. Um, and then I got in there, I opened it up, I took pictures of the action. Um, Here's the bench, as I said, that's an important component. This is actually just issues of the top, just close-ups of the top of the piano. There were a few like small scratches and stuff like that, but just getting a really good sense of the piano and try to cover all of those details of the things that might be important. So now, what did I do with that information? Let's go back to the actual full evaluation. Let's see here. Where is that? Here we go. And I'll share that with you all. Let's see here. There it is. Okay, cool. So what I do is I go through each of these things and I make a rating of it. So soundboard, bridges, pin block, bass strings, treble strings, plate. You could see the ratings I gave, 9, 9, 9, 7, 7, 10. Instead of making an individual comment on each of these within this belly category, I just sort of make a general overview and try to address basically all of the things that I mentioned. The soundboard and bridges are in excellent condition. A light cleaning is advised. Cleaning costs approximately $100. The pin block has a good torque for the age of the piano. Bass and treble strings have some areas of corrosion and tarnish but are usable. Light cleaning for the strings is recommended. Again, this is many years ago. These are just arbitrary costs at this point. But basically, I've actually added a feature to these evaluations, which I'll explain later. And that is when you get to these areas of concern, you actually might want to give 3 levels of service where you could say, you know, maybe one idea would be to clean the soundboard and strings.
Yes?
Somebody talking?
No?
Oh, okay. I think we just have someone's mic got put on. Yeah, one idea might be to clean the soundboard and strings, and that might be one price. And maybe one idea would be to replace all of the strings entirely, and that's another price. And what I like to try to do is come up with like 3 packages. One that's like minimal stuff that they can do for minimal pricing, 2 that's intermediate stuff that they can do for intermediate pricing, and 3, you know, stuff that they can do that's over and above, and here's how much that would be. But then that way people have options. If they want to go less expensive, then you've given them something, right? That you've taken care of the problem of maybe overpricing things and they don't want to do anything. And when you give them the higher priced option, then you account for, you know, you're underestimating, right, or underpricing things. If they really want to go for something special and you didn't know it, then you don't lose that opportunity by just saying, hey, we're just gonna do something quick and easy, and then they don't know that these other options are available. And so then in the action, I did something similar here, and then make some comments about each of the things, and basically just try to explain why the ratings are what they are. Keys and dampers, pedals are in good shape. Action is sluggish and needs cleaning and lubrication. Despite sluggishness, superficial inspection showed the action parts to be in good condition. Minor regulation may be in order. Hammer felt is in good condition and only shows very light wear. Minor hammer filing and voicing could improve tone. Okay, so overall tone of the piano, that's its own category. Piano has good tone for its age and conditioning. See above for details on strings and hammers. probably nowadays, just having listened a little bit to that piano, this is where I could recommend some voicing or something, right? And I could recommend different levels of voicing. I'll just go through and I'll do some needling. I'll go through and I'll do some lacquering and needling. I'll go through and do some filing, right? And those are be different levels of how much detail I'm going to put into, improving the tone of the piano. This particular evaluation was mostly because they were thinking of selling it, and so I didn't give so much in terms of what they might want to put into the piano. And then the case has sustained some very minor blemishes, been repaired and noticeable only upon close inspection. Case wood is split and worn in some very inconspicuous places, such as the corner of the back leg, the very bottom edge of the right front of the case. A few minor rubber cushions are missing that cushion the fall board as it changes position. Finish repair on the order of 500 to 1,000 is applicable but not recommended. And again, just explaining why not a 10, right? If it's a 10, you can just say, hey, it's new, like new condition, fine. But anytime I make a lower rating than a 10, I want to rationalize that. And then in this case, the bench seemed like it was in pretty pro condition. And so then I gave an idea of what the new replacement value would be if the piano was basically in perfect condition, a reconditioned value if you were to do some improvements to the piano, estimated repair costs, and then as is value, which is basically, if you take into account it's not perfect, right? What is as is value? And I recommended some pricing options here, not recommended less to sell this piano for less than $3,000, maximum likely for sale by owner price, and then like a suggested sales price. So how did I come across these numbers? And this is actually something interesting that we talked about with Leo Holder when it came to when he again does more official appraisals. What he does is he develops a really good relationship with the dealers so that he can actually go in and have like really honest conversations with them about their perceived value of different instruments. And that's basically exactly what I did here. I called a bunch of piano stores. I said, hey, here's this piano that I got. What do you think? And because I had all the pictures, I could send them photos even, right? And then if they're willing, they could get back to me and say, oh yeah, like here's what I think. And I would say that in if it's actually a relatively valuable piano, like one they might want to actually have, they'll actually even say how much would they buy it for. It's usually going to be a pretty low price, right? Comparatively low to potentially what somebody could get for sale by owner, and definitely a lot lower than what they would sell it for, right? Because they might even put some repairs into it or just want to make a profit. So they'll give opinions on what they would pay for it because maybe they want it and they want to at least put an offer out there. And then sometimes they'll even give you an idea of how much they would sell it for. Oh, if this piano was on my showroom floor, here's how much I wouldn't take less than XYZ for that piano. Um, and then if they're feeling really generous, they might even give you a little bit of an idea of what somebody might be willing, but might be able to get for it if they did it for sale by owner. And so here, I actually just went ahead and I just kept it anonymous as to which dealers I talked to, but I went ahead and gave the customer an overview of what those conversations actually went like. I took notes when I took those conversations, and then I just gave a summary here. So here's my reference number one. The dealer confirmed that the piano's date of manufacture is circa 1987 or 88. I have passed along the serial number to them, and I also, checked with these sort of blue book for pianos. He mentioned the piano was made before the fall of the Soviet Union and concluded that quality could be lower. So that was interesting. I didn't know that before I talked to him, and that might be a factor with Estonia pianos. He said the Estonia brand of today is nothing like the Estonia brand of late 1980s. He said that $10,000 would be a high price for this piano and that $3,000 to $5,000 would be a reasonable price. So there you go with, not recommended less than $3,000. Number two, this dealer did not claim to be an expert in Estonia pianos. That probably just meant when I talked to him, he literally said that, well, I'm not an expert in Estonias. And then he just went on to give his opinion. However, expressed some interest in the possibility of purchasing in the range of $3,000 to $5,000. So that's interesting. So two different dealers gave that range, and possibly a few thousand more. So again, that's coming from a dealer. So that means that maybe if a dealer would offer that amount of dollars for purchase, then you can pretty certain they'd sell it for more. And if you did it for sale by owner, then you could probably sell it by more. Number three, this dealer deals in new Estonia pianos. Okay, so that's cool. It gives them a little bit of authority here. They had a 5'6" used Estonia Grand from the year 2000. It was gently used by one person locally, aesthetically in excellent condition, and had sat in a living room and played only very gently for years. Their asking price was $17,900. And then I don't know, I forget whether I actually talked to this person or not. So I either didn't talk to them, but I sort of just looked, online or found some ads for what they were doing, or maybe I actually talked to them and they told me that they had that piano for sale. So that gives me a sense of some price ranging there, and that might help me decide, some of these maximum values if it was like new in like perfect condition. The dealer was, and then number four, this dealer was unsure of the piano's value. He noted that an Estonia on eBay listed for $14,500, however, was skeptical for the price and noted there were no offers. The eBay piano is a newer model, 190 manufactured in 2004. He noted that he has a used walnut polished finished Estonia piano with a player system. His asking price is $17,000, and the piano has a warranty. He noted that the player system adds about $5,000 to the value. He said a fair estimate of this piano's worth is $6,000 to $8,000. So I just found this process interesting because, I was intimidated at first, maybe of giving number values just of my own opinion. But once I talked to a handful of folks that, deal in pianos often, we started to center around some numbers that seem to be relatively consistent. And then I was pretty thorough here. I think a minimum of 3 would be good for references, but it looks like I went in to get like 5, 6, 7 here. Here are some things I just did online. So maybe actually these were people I all talked to all of them. Number 5, online. Crazy choice, I know, but we are considering purchasing either a used Estonia 190, purchased new in 2009, or a brand new Yamaha GC1M. The dealer is asking $18,500 for the Yamaha, could potentially be further negotiated, and we were probably looking at $15,000. We have a Yamaha P22 upright. Both sellers are willing to take with a $4,500 credit towards sale. So then just, scouring the internet for some chit chat about, scuttlebutt about what people are thinking about in terms of pricing. Here's another reference online, Blue Book of Pianos, L190 6'3" satin and polished ebony, 51,200. That would be a new piano. Another thing online from Wikipedia, Estonia pianos manufactured during the existence of the USSR were surprisingly strong and could demonstrate excellent stability, fast mechanic, and grand singing tones. Pianos from that period are very rare to find nowadays, almost being an extinct brand. After the fall of the Soviet Union, new pianos in the early 1990s were plagued by manufacturing defects, and those made since about 2002 have demonstrated remarkable quality and unique sweet singing tone. Additional improvements made in the years 2003 to 2005 have placed Estonia grand pianos in the highest or second highest tier of quality based on the ranking system of Piano Buyer, a recognized reference in the piano industry. And what I found was interesting to share that is because this piano was, would we say, it was from 1987 to 88. And so we did have that reference from one of the dealers who mentioned this issue with the fall of the Soviet Union and, was it manufactured then or not? And what's interesting is this person said new pianos in the early 1990s were plagued by manufacturing defects. And this just happens to be a little bit earlier than that. So we're kind of right on the cusp of whether that affected the quality of this piano. Yeah, and so what I did here to sort of like cover myself, right? Because what I'm trying to do here is say I'm not necessarily the expert in its value, but I think I know how to find the experts or find the people who have opinions that are important or find the information that might be useful or important for assessing its value. And in addition to sort of me giving my opinion, why don't I actually tell you how I formed that opinion? And that way, hey, you can form your own opinion, right? You can see what this person said. If you think that's a legitimate thing, if you think this Wikipedia article is useful, you can take it into account. You can't, whatever, right? Here's how I form my opinion. Just try to give people thorough information, and then take it from there. And again, like I said, appraised, I'll probably say evaluated at that point. I'll definitely tell people, hey, this is not for insurance purposes. This is not for legal purposes. This is not for donation purposes. Again, because there's a lot of things that you can get into, you can get liable for saying that kind of thing. So yeah, and then let me share one more thing with you guys that might be interesting. And let me see, there was a comment. Let's see here. Susan said, my Steinway C started as a request for an evaluation by a local fraternity. That's cool. Refused the offer to offer a number value, but I made a technical inspection, took photos, made a commentary about it, and referred them to an expert. Cool. I have another thing, which actually there's probably a better format for this at this point, but you can take a look at it and reference it and implement something similar if you want. This is like a form, kind of more of like a systematized way of creating an evaluation like this. So I'll share that with you guys to take a look at together. And then maybe we can have a conversation, see if there's questions or comments about this kind of stuff. Okay, so I created this form, and there's better formats at this point, but it was sufficed for the time that I created it, was a few years ago, so that I could just be on my phone, and go step by step through the necessary criteria, even fill in the blanks, and then even have something that sort of outputs and prints out, easy to send along to the client, and they can take a look at. Client name, date of reviewing it, brand, model, serial number, year, color, finish. I could even update this form to have like drop downs of different choices, just to make it easy for myself. And then, yeah, each one of these items on the list, I can make a rating, make the comments, and then this is what I was talking about. Give a description of a basic. This is more for offering people further services. Like they own the piano, they're not necessarily selling it. And again, this is the kind of thing where if you feel like it's worth your time, you could do this after every single appointment, or at least after appointments with new clients, right? Or after an appointment with someone who, you haven't done this for in a while, and they might find it useful. Let's see here, was a comment came in. Is Piano Buyer connected to Larry Fine? Yes. And have you used Larry as a source? Piano Buyer definitely is connected to Larry Fine. Larry started the piano book, and that was popular for a long time. And then I think just as things became more digital, he created Piano Buyer and the online resource, and created that whole brand to sort of take his reputation as a resource for piano, sort of an independent resource for piano information. And he started to include electronic keyboards and all kinds of stuff under that brand as well. Do I use him as a source? I personally wouldn't use Larry as a source, like to give him a call to ask him about pianos. And that would just be because I think he'd probably get tired of me calling him personally to ask those type of questions. If I called him, I would ask him about something uh, I don't know, more broad, and that he might have more personal interest in, so that it felt like it was a two-way exchange. Um, but the one thing that I wanted to say that's kind of, I think, like, is easy to forget is that when you're making these calls to dealers, my first thought was, okay, I'm in New York. This is when I made this evaluation in New York. I'm going to call a few dealers in New York. What if I run out of dealers that are interested in talking to me and giving me their opinion? Then I might run out of resources, and then I won't be able to fully, finish the evaluation and have enough information. But one thing I quickly realized is that number one, there's markets similar to New York that also have dealers in them. And yeah, I've got a phone. Like, I can call California, I can call Los Angeles, I could call, Houston, I could call Chicago, I can call a big city market that has a piano dealer, and chances are I could get at least three dealers to have an honest conversation with me about one piano. And they don't have to always be the owner of the store. They could be one of the showroom representatives. Let's just have a quick chat about it, if you don't mind. Again, like as Leo mentioned, you want to be building relationships with these people. You want to feel like it's a two-way street. So anything that you can offer them, to make it feel like it's not a complete waste of their time. I think especially in the markets um, where the pianos are located, it is an opportunity for them to have an insight into piano they might want to buy. So there is that sort of something being in it for them. Yeah, and so I could, like I said, I wouldn't call Larry Fine necessarily, but I might use his website or something. But I might call, if I'm in New York, I might call Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, like a big city. And the reason I say big city is because pricing can be different in sort of like different areas. Um, and then beyond trying to access those markets that are more similar, then I might go, if I couldn't access enough resources, and try other areas. And then there's so many different areas, there's so many different piano stores. They're definitely declining in numbers, but there's a ton of piano stores all over the place. And I think if you just keep calling and trying them, you'll find enough where somebody will give you an opinion that's going to be, relatively worthwhile. So, but yeah, going back to this form and how I think it could be used is, yeah, with each thing, a couple things that's cool is if you just present it to the client afterwards, after an appointment, you could either charge for it or make it like a bonus. So you could say, well, when I tune pianos, I don't just tune them, I give you a free evaluation. And then people, oh, wow, hey, that's cool. Like, a lot of people might do it in an ad hoc manner, but it's a lot different than if you have, like, you give them a form that you filled out that's very thorough and complete. They'll find value in that. Like I said, you could either charge for it, um, offer it as like an add-on, or offer it as something that's included, so that, they feel like they're getting more value out of the appointment and they can understand their instrument better. But then at that point, it gives you an opportunity to sort of have a neutral way of pitching them on further work that they might be interested in. So again, it's not like a pitch. It's just like, well, if you wanted to do X, Y, Z, here's all your different options of things that could improve the piano. So you just rate these different categories, and it helps you stimulate your thought about things that you could do, to 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 help make their piano cooler, make it sound better, all these type of things, improve the piano. So this is to sort of like stimulate my creativity. What are some basic things we could do to improve things? What are some mid-level? What are some top level? And often the basic things are maybe just cleaning, right? Or like lubrication or stuff like that. And then you get into things that are more complicated. So I just, like I said, create all these different categories, created a rating, create a place to put notes, put a small, like a basic, mid-level, and top-level cost estimate, and then a description of each of those to say like what exactly is going on. And then what's cool then, I think with this particular form, I made it and this looks way more complicated. Like I said, I'd probably redo this if I did a newer version. Is that now with all these estimates, like let's say I do 10 and 20 and 30 here, and I did 5, 10, and 15 here. I think I had it so that they would show up. Yeah, they show up down here as well, and then it even adds it up. So that's kind of cool, right? So now I have packages for them, Oh, here's your low level package. We're going to do some lubrication, we're going to do some cleaning, and, we'll leave it at that. Here's your mid-level package. Oh, we're going to do some voicing, we're going to do some deeper cleaning, right? Something like that. And here's your top package. Oh, I'm actually going to send these keys out and have them recovered, and, I'm going to rebush things and all this stuff. And the cool thing about this, you give them 3 simple options, so it's an easy choice. But if for whatever reason they wanted to, do some things and not others, you have a very easy way for them to do like an a la carte. Oh, okay, so I only want you to, improve the, you know, the hammer, the sort of tone of that. I only want the voicing. I don't want any other stuff that you said. Okay, cool. We had a price for that. We can give that to you individually. Yep. And then my name, or whoever evaluated it. Again, taking those photos is really cool. Just put them in a Google folder like I did, and shoot them a link. And then this particular form, I just put in. It's actually designed, so I just put in their email address, and it just shoots it right off to them, right? So once I'm done with the piano, it automatically gets sent to them, and a copy gets sent to me, and then we could do it with it whatever we like. So anyways, I thought you guys might find that interesting. I'm sure we all have our ways of doing that kind of stuff. Like I said, there's people who are more expert in evaluating pianos than I am, so totally recognize that. Let's see what else we got in comments. Susan Klein, looked like the sticking bass notes in the Estonia was from hammer spacing, easy to fix. Yeah, could have been. Susan Klein, instead of listing it in the evaluation, if the owner is there, I'd prefer to just explain and fix it as I looked at everything else. Yeah, totally. If it were the sticking key, definitely could be something very simple. Just go ahead and take it there. Donnie said, it looked professional and is easy to read, and with way more information than trying to recreate after you're away from the piano. Nice, and yes, cool. Yeah, I think that was the idea in creating this, is just to make it something where I have some guidelines so I can always do the same thing when I visit the piano, and I don't have to like make it up from scratch each time I would do it. Anyways, anybody have experience doing this kind of stuff? What are your thoughts? Would you use a system like this? Does it seem overly complicated? Would you charge for this? Would you do it at every appointment? What are your thoughts? I want to ask Kevin. Are you willing to chit chat, Mr. Clem?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually just started giving just kind of a ballpark number at valuations. I work for a piano store for floor tunings and then also a in-home place as well. So yeah, I definitely don't not an expert at selling pianos, but I like your system. It is a little too many pages for me.
Right.
I like to probably have things on either 1 or 2 pages. Um, but yeah, it's very thorough, especially if you're, let me see, if you're trying to make notes for yourself for the future, basically.
Yeah, for the future, that's also nice. Definitely. That's a good observation. Yeah, I think the one thing that I find helpful is just uh, like just having a system at all for anything helps it feel more valuable to people, and it's just easier to do. But I think that's part of the sort of level of complexity that I introduced in that to kind of make it really clear that we've got something of value to deliver to folks. But yeah, I have folks on my team who, uh, we can't get them to fill it out. It just it could be like take a long time. It doesn't feel like it's quick and easy enough. No matter how automated I try to make it. So it's definitely something that can seem like too much. Carl, what did you have to say?
Well, that's way more than I normally would do. But what comes up for me is people need to sell the piano or want to sell the piano, and they ask. And I do basically what you do. I do an internet search and I look up pianos like that. Or I have a couple of dealers that I call and that I work with, and I basically tell them about the piano, give them my evaluation, and say, what would you pay for it? And I find that, and because I find that most people have wildly inflated views of what their
Oh
pianos
yeah,
are worth. And
right,
so what I basically say to them, look, if you need to sell the piano, a dealer is willing to pay $3,000 to $5,000 for your piano. But I've done a little research, and I wouldn't share I would only share that. I mean, I talk to the dealers, I wouldn't break it out like you do. I do the same sort of conversation, but that's
right,
internal between me and the dealer.
right,
And,
right,
and but I would tell them the bottom line that I've talked to a dealer or two, and they would be willing to pay somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 for. And I say, I've looked at this piano online and I've seen them being sold for anywhere between 10 and 15,000. But realize that doesn't mean you're going to get it. And then you're going to
right,
have people traipsing through your house. So the wholesale price is a more realistic price. And I leave it
hmm
at that.
right,
And certainly for the last 10 years, I no longer do insurance or tax appraisals. I mean, I used to do that all the time, but
right.
now I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, again, from that conversation with Leo, it's like there's a certain range, right, where I think just like the average tech, and as also just because people probably aren't willing to pay, you got to pay to have those level of evaluation. So, you know, um, the average tech can do probably some of this stuff within a lower range of value of piano, but make sure you're not involved in like some kind of divorce case or some special, $1 million donation or whatever. Like, just let this try to keep it simple. Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts on the sort of evaluation process? How about just the aspect of it of like giving people ideas of what you can do to kind of improve the piano? Does anybody have like a habit of something that you always do at the end of an appointment that always ensures that you're at least offering them, options of ways to improve things? Doesn't seem like it. Nobody's chomping at the bit. And these things are hard. What I've noticed, you know, is that a lot of these things can be useful in theory, but a little bit hard to implement. Um, this particular format, I've used it, you know, more often than not in these cases where I need to do this stuff, and it's especially useful because I have it on hand. I could always just run to it if somebody says, "Hey, I need an evaluation." Oh, okay, cool. Here's my form. I'll just fill it out. Um, but like the idea of doing it after lots of appointments, maybe it hasn't always happened. Jim Kelly, what do you say? You said send a private note. I have an evaluation form to list issues. There is value in having a record on paper, and I put notes on my copy of invoices when someone wants an idea of the piano's value for insurance, donation. Oh, when somebody wants an idea of the piano's value for insurance donation, I use a professional appraiser in Maryland. Too many legal issues today. People overvalue the piano. One lady had a basket case, Steinway and Sons, but insisted it was worth $25,000. Yeah, I mean that's the big problem with for insurance and donations. I think people try to get away with quite a bit, and maybe they don't really feel they're getting away with it. In their mind, they're telling them, yeah, it's worth 25, but um, I don't think we talked about, I don't think I shared this about the session with Leo Holder. One of the things he said was when you do these official appraisals for a donation, there's this factor that he takes into account where he actually doesn't like sign off on it until it's delivered to the recipient. I forget the reasoning behind it, but basically, oh, I think this is what it is. So, like, let's say I'm going to donate my piano to, the local university, or I say I am, right? So I'm going to go to an appraiser and I'm going to get like a signed legally official document from them that says I donated my piano to the local university, and therefore I've taken this much value from my, what I own, and I've given it away for charity or whatever the tax implications are. And then, when I file my taxes, then I could take that little break or whatever happens. So, uh, but what if I just got that evaluation filled out by the appraiser and then it just didn't happen to actually donate the piano, right? Then that's a problem because uh, the appraiser has now given me the certificate that says that I donated a certain amount of value when I actually didn't. So that was one issue that he said had come up. Like he always has to make sure that it's been received before filling out those donation things, because you don't want to get caught where somebody actually didn't donate it. They just wanted a document to try to get a tax break. Let's see what else we got. Donnie said, I found using the Garrett Labor Guide useful for my own time management. Well, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with that. What's the Garrett Labor Guide? Is that independent of piano technicians, or is that like a universal thing? I'm gonna look it up here. Garrett Labor Guide. Yeah.
Ethan, I think it's now available from the Guild.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You could always get it from him. Probably still can. Joe Garrett in Portland.
Okay. Yeah, I see it online. Forumpianoworld.com. Repair Labor Guide, J.A. Garrett, Piano Forums. Oh, can someone confirm the repair guide? J.A. Garrett quotes, man hours. Okay. Yeah, interesting. I might even have something like that. So it just kind of gives a general like time that it might take to do various things, and then you just sort of multiply it by your labor rate or something.
Right. And it's a very minute, I mean, it's a very detailed list.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found that if it was taking me too long, there had to be a reason it was taking me too long.
Right.
In shape.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good resource. Russell said, I used to do piano evaluations, but I found the process of coming up with a value that I'm confident with every time consuming, and suppose I was not charging enough for the evaluation. Started referring all my evaluations to another tech in the area that I thought could do a better job than I do. I don't have a good mind for numbers. Yeah, I mean, that goes along with just picking what you're good at and sticking with it. But I think, again, I think as long as you're not claiming that you're an official appraiser and you're not doing it for legal purposes, I think especially in these cases, somebody just wants to sell their piano and they want an idea of it, or they want to know how they can improve the piano, and you give them a nice idea of it, or they want to buy a piano and they want to make sure they don't get a lemon. Like all these cases, it's not an official legal thing. They just want your opinion. I think it's totally okay. And I'm cool with doing it. So, and I think it's worth people paying for. I've had those really sad occasions. It's only happened a handful of times. Oh, I showed up at the resale shop. It's always the resale shop because resale shops know nothing about pianos. They get the piano there, they put a price tag of a few $100 on it. Oh, it's only a few $100. Incredible, And it's only they'll drop it off for only a few hundred more. no returns or exchanges, right? And then it gets to the person's house and it's like literally falling apart. And then they call me and I get there and I just go, I'm not going to charge you for this visit because I feel so sorry for you. you've already you've already lost enough money, and I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to have to pay someone to move this out of here. It's those are sad, and so it's definitely worthwhile when somebody's shopping for a piano to say, okay, I'm your guy or gal. Send me out to a few pianos. I'll charge you XYZ. I'll create, they probably don't need more than 1 to 3 of these type of evaluations, but say I'll give you a little package. I'll do 1 to 3 of these little evaluations on the pianos you're interested in, and I guarantee you could save yourself, $1,000 because you might have just get a piece of crap that you got to trash or something. So I think they're worth charging for, would put it that way. All right, what else do we got? Jim Kelly said, always worth recommending things to the client. I have sold lots of string covers and damp chasers after showing damages and explaining how humidity needs to be controlled. Also take time to explain regulation needs. The BTG technical bulletins that explain pitch raises, regulation voicing are great. Handouts to give clients. John Ross says, evaluation is professionally detailed. Customers are open to suggestions with time and trust. Honest initial suggestions are important and can begin a trusting relationship. Deadlines for repairs and regulations are important. That's true to list on paper so customers know a year or more from the appointment that prices will change. Yeah, that's important. That's a good point. I also found it just useful to start doing this. As you can see, as I said, there were things that I put prices on. I first that thing that I shared you with, I think that could have been from 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know. That nowadays it'd be like, ooh, number one, I know more what I need to do that thing, and that I would charge a lot more for it. Be it like regulation or something like that. Oh gosh, that's going to take a lot more time, and I need to invest more into that stuff like that. So I think that's, but I guess my point is by trying this and at least coming up with numbers and thinking through it, you start to get a handle on things that you do. What are the cost of things? What if I outsource it? What do I want to do this? Don't I want to do this? Just I think it's like a good mental practice to get used to thinking about the pricing of things and what's fair. So okay, cool. Well, I hope that was useful, folks. I had fun. I hope you did, and it's good to see you again. So I don't think it's next week. I think it's a couple weeks from now. We'll have somebody else come in next week. But yeah, I'm excited to have Jonathan Cleghorn come in. I talked to him, and I think you guys will find that Brown action kind of interesting. It's an interesting case, and also just an interesting piano story of that piano in Urubamba, Peru. All right. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.